Welcome to the NLP Summit. I'm so excited to be talking to all of you today. I'm Sonal. I'm the founder of Zingg, which is an open source entity resolution framework. That's also the topic of my talk today, and we'll be covering about Zingg and entity resolution in more detail. I've spent a lot of time working on Zingg, but prior to that, also a lot of time in the industry, working on various kinds of software and various kinds of data problems. I am writing at my own Substack, sonalgoyal.substack.com, which you can check out. So, coming to the problem of entity resolution and really why is this problem needed? What is this problem all about? And what are some ways in which we can solve this problem, specifically through Zingg, is what I am planning to discuss today. So, as a data consultant, while I was building data infrastructure for various companies, what I realized is that even when we are building the data lakes, even when we are streaming all our data through complex extraction, transformation, and load processes into our warehouses and our lakes, we are still missing the core entities and a holistic view of those core entities. What that leads us to is an absolute lack of understanding of whom we are dealing with in terms of our business, how we can increase our revenue, decrease our costs, and stay compliant in a risk free fashion. Now, if you look across different systems in an enterprise, typically you would see, the same person, the same customer coming in through multiple channels, and they would have some differences or variations across their different records. Some systems would not even capture information like phone names, or phone numbers, or emails. Some of them will have different formats. There would be loosely typed text. And even within these three records and just four attributes, we can see that there are various combinations of variations that can exist. And this problem is not just customer data. This is also equally prevalent when you have supplier data, when you have product data, when you have parts data, whatever you are procuring. It could be B2B accounts and leads. And this problem is rampant in all kinds of entities. So, just like a B2B case here. Now, the biggest problem that we are talking about here is that there's no unique identifier that we can link these records by. And by record, I mean a customer, a supplier, a product, a part, or anything that's of relevance to the business. And that's essentially what we're trying to resolve through entity resolution. So if we are looking at comparing every record with every other record, because there's no way in which there is no key on which we can actually do a join, just within a single attribute, even if you look at just name, it's going to lead to a lot of comparisons. And as we scale up our data, a million records is not something that's a lot of data, honestly, in these times. There would be LinkedIn lists, there would be external third party data that we would be getting, there would be internal supplier data, that would be internal billing and help desk data that we would have. And this number is not a real huge number. And the comparisons for a single attribute themselves are a lot. Now, if we look at across attributes, it's actually really very, very complex to solve this out. So, given that I mentioned that this is a problem that's been prevalent, that is a very common problem, it exists in all our data systems. It's not that this problem is a new problem. This is a problem which has been there for a long time. There have been tools and technologies which have been specifically present to address these challenges of entity resolution. But from what we see in the industry right now and the kind of systems that we have built for ourselves and which are available in the market right now, there are three main buckets of tools or categories which kind of solve this entity resolution problem in a unique way. One is the master data management systems. The second is customer data platforms. And the third is graph databases. Unfortunately, most of the NDM systems that we have currently they have poor scalability, and are mostly rule based, which leads to a lot of inflexibility, large deployment times, and very long deployment cycles, as well as complex implementations. These systems also tend to exist beyond our data lake and our warehouse. So there is a separate process in most of these tools, be it MDM, be it CDPs, that's needed to extract data out, for them to resolve it, and for us to consume it back in the lake or the warehouse, which is the place where we actually want the resolved entities. Similar problem with CDPs. It's not privacy compliant, data ownership issues, inflexible schema, and graph databases, though they talk about entity resolution, they are more of a toolkit than a complete framework. And it's one has to go and build out the framework themselves using those tools. So that's essentially why, as a data consultant who was seeing this problem again and again as part of deployments that we were doing for warehousing and lakes, this is exactly the problem that kind of hurt us a lot of times as a boutique consulting company, and that's what I set out to build, which is Zing open source entity resolution, which would actually, even with records which don't have known identifiers, but they have variations, will be able to resolve them and get them all together and say that these actually belong to the same real world entity. Now, I talked about entity resolution problems, and some of the gaps in the existing tooling. So when I set up to build Zing, some of the key things that I had in mind were that it's not a problem which is just customer entity specific or product entity specific. We should try to build something which can work across different kinds of entities. I'm sorry, something going wrong with that presentation. Sorry for jumping around like that. Yeah. So it should work across any entity at any scale, because data volumes are getting large, and we should not have to hard code those rules, because we've seen in the case of Mr. Marcus, it was so difficult to code those rules. And the approach that we've taken at Zing is that all this is actually learned by ML. So there is no hard coding of rules. And if you, the approach is an ML centric approach. And what that means is that if we are learning from data, which is the base premise of Zing, if we start learning from the data directly, we don't need to define any rules. We can work across any entity because we are learning on its own data set, and we can scale because scaling becomes a part of the ML exercise that we're doing. So in front of you, we have the labeler of Zing, which would pick out some records for machine learning, and Zing algorithms, which learn how to match and what to match, will, based on what the user is labeling, will be able to learn what is the best way to cluster records together, and to not match every record with every other record, and learn the rules of similarity, not through hard coding, but through ML. So Zing essentially is a Spark-based open source product. It resides wherever your warehouse or your lake is, so it runs within that. And the raw data and the resolved entities continue to remain within the warehouse and the data lake. So a typical architecture is that data is for the first party data, third party data is coming to the warehouse or the lake, and that's where Zing would resolve the entities and build out the identity graph, which can again through reverse ETL be streamed out to the data applications. Now I'll talk about a few concepts that are Zing specific so that we can look at the API. I already mentioned that Zing is a Spark-based application, and it's the open source runs completely on Spark, so it depends on Spark. We have written Zing on Java, but we expose a Python API so that people can actually use it without having to worry about JVM languages. So some of the key concepts that we have are pipes. Now, what does a pipe mean for Zing is any data source or data sync that you want to read or write to. And thanks to the architecture that we have and using Spar, we have connectors widely available for all kinds of RDBMS, NoSQL databases, data lakes, data formats like Parquet, Avro, JSON, XML, etc. So a pipe embodies that data source or wherever you want to write Zing output to. A model, in the case of Zing, we learn a couple of models, but the key ones are the blocking model and the similarity model. A blocking model learns from the labels that we provided to Zing what not to match and which ones to cluster together so that not every record gets compared with every other record. Sorry, it seems to be jumping a lot. Uh, Excuse me for that. The similarity model, on the other hand, embodies really is what are the attributes that the user cares about in a match and how do they stack up against each other for two records to be labeled as a match. So that's a Zing model. That's like in a nutshell what Zing models are. Match types are really how do you want an attribute to be matched against each other. Is it fuzzy, is it exact, is it a pin, is it an email? And once you define that, Zing would figure out the right kind of features to build for that attribute. So in this example here that I have the Python API here, the field definitions, sorry, the field definitions here are actually looking at a match type, and everything is here is configured as fuzzy, the first name, the last name. But we have also defined other match types, and those are also used. I'll go back to my previous slide and talk about phases, which I missed. Phases are essentially the Zing program, which can be run in different ways. So if you look here, we have a client options.phase right at if you look at the last three lines, uh, the Zing program can run in various phases. We have different kinds of phases like fine training data and label, where you're actually labeling. Then we train, which is going to persist the Zing records, the models, and then the match. Now, if we look at the anatomy of a Zing program, pretty simple to achieve the kind of entity resolution that we have, and that is these field definitions would actually be just the attributes you care to match upon. These The model ID is essentially wherever the Zing models are actually being saved, and this input pipe and the output pipe are wherever the data resides and where you want the output to be. So we run that, and the matches or the resolved entities that are done by Zing come with your own data. So the ID, the first name, last name are actually copied over from the input, but Zing would add three separate attributes: the Z cluster, the max score, and the min score. The Z cluster for matching records is the same. And what that means is that, if two records have got the same Z cluster, they can be treated as a match with a probability which is determined by the max score and the min score. Now, I talked about the problem of entity resolution, and some of our users are actually very actively building customer 360 solutions using Zing, the open source as well as the enterprise versions. And it's actually very interesting to see it in action. And a case study that I wanted to highlight here is that donor data, uh, again, not really a customer 360 but a donor 360 story, where data at individual level and at household level is unresolved, and by using Zing, they can actually resolve it and understand who they are dealing with, what those donors care about, what are the best campaigns they can run for those donors, what events they can invite to. And a very interesting case study again that I wanted to highlight, which is about Canadian Football League, which is building a Fan 360 using Zing, and they want to use a lot of their data across franchisees, across their different leagues, understand their fans better to service them. So we have a thriving community of companies which are using Zing across the globe. We are 650 people on Slack. And I would really love if some of you who have this problem or even otherwise come check us out. We have also published some notebooks along in collaboration with Databricks. So you can run Zing directly on the Python API directly on Databricks. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. And I hope this session on entity resolution and Zing in particular would be useful to you. Do check out our open source project and let us know if you want to connect. Thank you.
As today's sessions come to a close, I want to thank you all our speakers and you, the audience, for shedding light on the most recent breakthroughs in NLP, LLMs, and generative AI. I would like to thank each one of you for your engaging questions and for sharing your experience and expertise. It's evident from our discussion that open source efforts and the community play a pivotal role in applying generative AI and NLP techniques in practice. The range of tools and models presented today, tailored to tackle real-world business problems and challenges, is truly inspiring. The accomplishments of the open source community this year have been impressive, and by all means, we are only getting started. We reconvene tomorrow at noon Eastern Time for day 2 of the NLP Summit, with a spotlight on the role of NLP in healthcare. We invite you to rejoin and be a part of this ongoing discourse and community. Wishing you a pleasant evening, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.